Let's call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please, for attendance? Okay. It's really loud today.
Mr. Lawrence?
Here.
Mr. Lofterson?
Here.
Ms. Rogers?
Here.
Ms. Teets?
Here.
Mr. Bodiska?
Here.
So Ms. Hockenberry and Mr. Meeks are absent.
Yes. And can I get a motion for the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda with one change, that the receipt of petitions occur immediately after the adoption of the agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda is adopted with the one change, and receipt of petitions will happen before planning commissioner reports. So we have one speaker slip, Matthew Abel, if you want to step up and state your name and your address. Well, I did, sorry. I know that.
Okay, I'm Matt Abel, and I live at 1001 Madison Lane. And today I'm representing a group of students at George Mason High School, as well as a newly founded organization called Transition Falls Church, which is dedicated to fostering community sustainability and resilience in the Falls Church area. We students are very concerned about the issue of LEED certification for TJ's new add-on. We believe that the energy impact of city buildings is incredibly important, not only for environmental reasons, but also for economic reasons. In a world where oil and other natural resources are being depleted and energy costs are rising, and initial allocation of funds toward energy efficiency seems like a good long-term investment. And if we continue to build our cities, our towns, and our roads on the assumption that that a finite resource is going to continue to be plentiful, we're really kind of just building a house of cards on a pile of quicksand almost. And we've heard the argument that the building will be LEED equivalent. However, we fear that without clear guidelines and restrictions, contractors will cut corners and we will lose the dedication to environmental stewardship that we expect from our city. When Transition Falls Church held its first community film screening on February 18th, we asked our 50 or so participants to give us feedback as to how we can make Falls Church a better place to live. And the number of people who mentioned LEED certification was actually pretty incredible. It was actually about a third of the comments that we received were people mentioning the need for LEED certification of this new TJ add-on. And I'm not completely sure what power the Planning Commission has over the issue. I know there's some mixed jurisdiction over the project. It's, from my understanding, it's partially a school board thing. And I plan to confront the school board tomorrow, but I would just like to make you aware that your constituents are paying close attention to this debate.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. And we have a meeting coming up with the school board soon, and when we will also be dealing with the project on site plan. So
Awesome.
There'll be chances for us to put our 2 cents in about LEED as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any planning commissioner reports? Seeing no planning commissioner reports? Okay. Our planning director, Mr. Snyder, was supposed to be up here momentarily, so we're kind of, I guess, in a moment of limbo here for a planning director report.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I would suggest that possibly we
Here we go.
change the agenda again and maybe approve the minutes while we're waiting.
Okay. All those in favor in updating the agenda to approve the minutes first?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do we have any changes to the minutes? No? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I move.
Can I get a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved for February 21st, 2012. And now Mr. Snyder is here. Would you like to give us your plan director report?
Yes, and my apologies for the delay. I had to go back up to the office and come back down. Wanted to thank you all for your support and attendance in the North Washington Street plan. As we mentioned in the memo, we are looking to try to move forward with the South Washington Street plan as the next phase. So being able to complete this next phase will be very important. Some updates. We are still waiting for the filing for the TJ site plan. The earliest we've heard it could happen, Elizabeth Perry has been following this for us, is possibly this week, but it may in fact be next week. So we're continuing to be in touch, help in any way we can, but that's the current schedule at this point.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Snyder? I did want to point out on our schedule of future anticipated items that we do have a Thursday meeting, March 15th, that's joint with the school board and city council. We mentioned it before, but it's coming up next week, and just as a reminder that we have that extra meeting. And I did receive some communication from Susan Carney, who's the chair of the school board, and about the lead situation with the schools, and they said at that March 15th meeting they would have information from the architectural firm on what it would take to take that project to lead and what the cost would be. So hopefully we'll get that information on March 15th. Okay.
We are continuing also to work on setting a date for the meeting for the Greenway Downs effort, and I'm not sure whether, Ms. G, whether you've heard confirmation yet from schools, but we have an inquiry for a date and a place and a time.
I have not heard from them. The room reservation form that the schools use indicate that it would take at least 2 weeks to hear back. It's been 3 weeks, and I've reached out to them asking to confirm or let us know that we're not able to use that space so that we can reschedule elsewhere.
Okay, do we have a secondary site in mind? There's really not that much over there. So hopefully it will work out with the schools.
We think that'd be an ideal place, so we're going to keep working on that. But
right. And on the North Washington plan, as was mentioned earlier with our session with council, we may be doing a public meeting on March 24th, just to circle back and touch base with the neighborhood around there. And it would probably be something similar to the presentation we saw tonight, just to give the public, you know, the ability to go to a neighborhood meeting and see what the plan looks like before we finalize it.
yes, I was able to contact Columbia Baptist Church, and hopefully that date will work, but that was one that was available possibly on a Saturday, and that's, of course, the location where we had the first meeting. So we hope that could work. I'm going to be out of the office from the 2nd through the 10th of April, seeing some family in California, and at any rate, I wanted to let you all know that. Also, in looking at some of the zoning issues that are in the city, been asking Garrison Kit to continue looking at using GIS skills. When we were looking at the Greenway Downs area, we found that I think about 100 of those houses also had side setback problems, in addition to front setback problems, which all of them have. And then looking at other sites in the city, corner lots. In R1A, I have 248 corner lots, 164 are non-conforming. And 84 conforming. In R1B, 39 conforming, 41 non-conforming. This is when you sit down and kind of do the setbacks. So out of 328 corner lots, our preliminary look is 205 are non-conforming, 123 are conforming. This begins to explain why, you know, we have, it seems to me, so many properties kind of frozen in time, if you will. And it poses a real question on the environmental side. This is where, you know, the thoughts and wisdom of the commission would be helpful, because there's in some ways maybe an unintended consequence of incentivizing, in a sense, tear downs. because it's easier to tear down and move and put a new building in the right geometric place than to adapt an older building, which is not in the correct place, at least in terms of the code. So, and I think many of these are older buildings built under previous code. So it's a dilemma, but it does say that in some ways the code's broken. And I know there were a lot of folks in ZOAC who worked on different aspects of this, but how much you got into, the setback issue, it's a big issue. So I was kind of astounded to see that 2/3 were non-conforming. That tends to be the rule rather than the exception. So, as we continue to do examination of these things, that, we may be coming forward with looking for suggestions as to the best method to fix that and examine what the potential unintended consequences may be of the interface between the code and the reality on the ground.
I look forward to having that public meeting and starting to move forward on this. Any other questions for Mr. Snyder? Mr. Lofterson?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of the country for 2 weeks starting on Sunday, so I won't be here for the March 15th work session. And so I have a question in regards to process. What will the outcome of that work session be in regards to the possibility of having the TJ edition be LEED Silver or LEED certified? What is the process there?
Well, at that meeting, it's just really basically a time to discuss the financial aspects of the budget related to the schools and look at the CIP. So there's nothing, no decision would be made or any kind of votes would be done at that time. But I think we're kind of in this situation until we actually know the information, like what's the threshold that we need to meet for LEED. I mean, how far off are we? Obviously, we're off a substantial amount. Then it may be something that we'll just have to shelve anyway. But we need to know the amount because the money will have to come from somewhere.
Right. Sure.
And currently, with the amount in the CIP doesn't cover it. So I think we're kind of, so until we have that meeting and get that information, I'm not really sure where we can go.
Related to that, one of the recommendations of ZOAC was to have sustainability standards for the commercial building environment, LEED Silver. And I would like to ask when the Planning Commission can actually consider this recommendation of ZOAC. When can we get it on the docket? Because this is a very important issue, I think, for the city, and I think it would really be a good thing to have happen in the near term. Well,
actually, I've been in some discussions with the Environmental Services Council with the current chair. And they are looking at the language being used in Fairfax and Arlington and Alexandria, and they're going to also talk with Mr. Snyder and Mr. Foster and put a proposal together and present to the Planning Commission. So they're going to help, because basically we're in the middle of a lot of projects, so I asked them to do the legwork on this. And so they're going to put that together and bring it to us. And that way we can move a little bit faster than if we put it on our list of things to do, it's going to take a while. Because we've chosen to work on Greenway Downs and the area plans before a lot of the other pieces. So.
Sent some ZOAC stuff to council already.
And yes, we have sent some ZOAC stuff to council. But we all know we have a long list and we've been working through it. But anyway, but having the Environmental Services Council do the legwork will help us move forward on that issue a lot faster. So they're working on it right now.
I'm glad to hear that because obviously the city of Alexandria has a green building policy, Arlington County has one, Fairfax County has one, and we don't, and we've been discussing this for years now. So it's time that we sort of decide on it and make a commitment.
Right, so they're going to give us language related to both commercial and also city property,
right,
buildings, developments. So anyway, when it comes to us, we can look through what they have and if it works well, then we may be able to move very fast on it. But we'll be dependent, of course, on the council's schedule. Do we have anything else for Mr. Snyder? Oh, Mr.
Well, I just had a
Lawrence?
question. Are we going to have our first meeting in April? I mean, I'll be gone for spring break, you'll be gone, Jim now will be gone. It seems like we should plan ahead to not having that.
Well, I think it's dependent, if you could still have a quorum and another staffer, it's maybe dependent on the TJ site plan, because what kind of timing we have on that, if they have to have a meeting without us. So and I guess right now you don't really know the timing because you haven't received the application.
Yeah, we'll certainly need time to review it and put it through the internal process, but we certainly could, we'll be looking, we've been talking some about what's the appropriate April schedule, and we knew that there were some members who were going to be out in early April. But we can provide staff support. I think it's a question of what needs to be on that schedule.
Right. Mr. Lofton?
So there are two issues, really. One is what to do with TJ, the TJ addition, and then there's the sort of the longer-term policy issue of an official green building policy.
Right.
The latter will take a little bit longer, but we can certainly, within the time frame of the TJ project, as a planning commission, decide what we would like to do, I would think.
Right. I mean, we can decide as a group if we want to advocate for LEED, or we can decide, if we decide as a group not to, then we can individually also advocate for LEED. And, as Mr. Abel had made his statement, there's a group of the public that's advocating as well. But I kind of feel I'm in a position right now, until we actually have the information, we'll know what the costs are. I think it's hard to say what we're going to do.
Right.
Because if the amount comes up to be an amount that there's just no way that we can pull from, because we're basically going to have to pull. It may not be possible. But, and like I said, parallel to that, the Environmental Services Council is working on an actual policy that they're going to present to us and ask us to guide through the process for the council approval. Okay, anything else? Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Oh, yes, Ms.
Advocating.
Right.
We don't do the budget, as you know.
Right.
But I would like to know if there is a way that we can do more than advocate. I guess it would entail changing our recommendation or amending our recommendation for the CIP. Is that correct?
That's an option, that we
Right.
could amend it.
Okay.
I mean,
I just want to make sure that there is an option, because sitting here and saying that we think we need to do a LEED certification, and then having somebody say, no, we can't do it, I think it would be good to have another option.
no, I think we definitely can do that. With the 80 million that wasn't kept in the CIP, the money that the schools wanted that didn't have a backup plan at this point, I'm sure are additional funds that would
That's what I'm thinking.
meet, not, go over the amount of debt that we're allowed to have. So there probably are additional funds in there. But, I think, like I said.
And I know we don't get the final decision on
Right.
that, but still, I think it's a very strong position that we can take that would possibly make something happen that some of us would like to see happen.
Right. No, I understand. No, so we definitely could amend our CIP and put in a new recommendation,
Okay, thank you.
or put a motion to do so. Okay. Any other comments? So let's move on to old business. Ordinance to amend Chapter 6 Buildings, Chapter 14 Environment, create Chapter 33 Property Maintenance, and amend Chapter 48 Zoning to provide for a property maintenance code of Falls Church with civil penalties, 2011-23. And we need to hold a public hearing today and make a final recommendation to city. And this was the ordinance that we looked at previously and asked for a delay of a few weeks to defer it, and so now we need to go through and make our recommendations so that the council can do their vote on it. So, Mr. Snyder, do you want to just briefly talk about some of the changes? I saw a few changes in here.
Yes.
Since our last discussion.
And you mentioned, you had a question, I believe, about rain barrels, and there was a question about trash cans. And we've not said anything, they're not intended as an object of this. So they're not something that has to worry about this code.
Okay.
So we just to clarify that, it's a good question, and it was talked about before, but we've chosen not to specifically get into those. Now, there were changes made to notice, which you all have, the first-class mail on line 224. Some of these were made before. The area, there was also a question about Rat Harborage, line 371. There was a question about, is 18 inches too much? That was changed to elevated rather than the 18-inch standard. The idea is to get these things off the ground so they can be inspected. The fencing is mentioned in terms of preventing deterioration. And I think we made we had a change that was reflecting the, let me find it here, the issue of what you can keep in your backyard.
Line 248, looks like you changed it from public to pedestrian view now.
Yes, and the pedestrian view being you're not going to be looking at this from your second-story window. Trying to make that, the idea is to encourage things to be located where they won't be seen, but not put everybody in jeopardy of being in violation of this code because they happen to have some ladders or wheelbarrows or other equipment that they're using to maintain their property. So that language was softened.
Okay, and didn't you suggest adding in the word seasonal there? Because I think we'd all agreed that would work where...
Seasonal was, I think I tried that 2 or 3 times and wasn't ever sure whether I got a take or not, but I think it's a useful word if the commission agrees.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would address, some of the concerns that you've got things out and you're going to use them, but yeah, if you leave your lawnmower out, in the middle of winter, that's not quite the same as having it out there for the summer. Yeah, that might become trash at that point.
Yeah, so you're talking about like on line 253, and it says exception, exterior seasonal, or
no, right at the end where exterior storage of tools and equipment customarily used in the seasonal maintenance of residential structures. Okay. I don't think it needs anything more than that.
Rogers?
Okay. Line 234, or 224, where you said it was changed by first-class mail posting of the property. My concern was that it should be by certified mail and by posting of the property. I think that first-class mail or posting of the property is not sufficient notice to the homeowner.
And also not sufficient proof for the city that
Exactly.
it did what it should. Yeah, I see that more as covering the city than, someone who doesn't want to admit that they got something.
Well, sometimes, something is posted on your door or is sent first-class mail and it never goes away somewhere.
Yeah. Problem?
Well, not necessarily a
burden on
problem.
staff, or?
It's an expense, to some extent, an expense issue, but first-class mail's kind of been the standard for notification, but if the commission feels strongly that that's a better approach, we're certainly open to that.
Well, I mean, Ruth, what about making it first class and posting as opposed to or? I think the or doesn't work, definitely.
Would that work better for staff to have it and posting? Because I think if you did first-class mail and an actual posting on the property, that would be very clear. And
I mean, one approach could be first-class mail and posting, or by certified mail, making it that option.
okay, that works.
Because certainly, your point about certified mail, it is effective, it can be tracked, it has merit. Maybe those two options are a reasonable combination of first class and posting or certified mail.
Well, the thing about certified mail, though, if the person doesn't sign for the certified mail, it goes back to the post office. The person who sent the certified mail is notified. You know that the homeowner has not received notification then, and therefore you can't proceed.
Well, you know that somebody might have refused to.
No, they don't.
Take it.
I don't think they can. You have to sign that you.
Well, you have to sign,
You
but if you
have to
don't
say that,
sign-
or you say I'm refusing it, and then that is noticed by the post office.
Okay, but then how does certified mail solve the problem if they can refuse to sign and then it comes back and you don't have any proof that they actually got it? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Your concern being that someone could try to just dodge the certified mail by,
Yeah, when you answer the phone and somebody asks if they can speak to
Right.
you, you say, I'm sorry, he's not here. I mean, that sort of thing.
That's why I kind of like what you had suggested was first-class mail and posting or certified mail. Because if you send, either way, if you also post the property, post the door, it's on the door.
Right.
And,
it would give us alternatives
right.
that could be equally effective. And I'm just thinking the first class and posting is a kind of belt and suspenders, and then this gives you another option, which, we are all familiar with, the certified mail.
I'm good with having it as personally, the certified mail is an option. I mean, ultimately, there is some expense, but
Right.
You're talking about imposing a civil penalty here, so this is not just notification expense. You're going to get some money to reimburse you of some significance to pay for at least the certified.
Right.
I think it should be at least an option in your toolbox here.
Would the commission support the notion of, or a change that would say by first-class mail and posting of the property, or by certified mail?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments or questions for Mr. Snyder?
And you wanted to add seasonal at 254?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
before maintenance.
Right.
I like the elevated first 18 inches.
18 inches is a lot.
18 inches is huge.
Okay, any other questions or comments at this point? Can we get a motion then?
Madam Chair, I move that the Planning Commission adopt the ordinance, we don't have a number, do we? An ordinance to amend Chapter 6, buildings. All right, let me start over. I move that the Planning Commission adopt ordinance T011-23, ordinance to amend Chapter 6, buildings, Chapter 14, environment, create Chapter 33, property maintenance, and amend Chapter 48, zoning to provide for a property maintenance code of Falls Church with civil penalties with the changes just included in the discussion.
I get a
Madam
second?
Chair, point of order.
Yes.
Planning Commission cannot adopt the ordinance. You make a recommendation to council to
Sorry,
adopt.
I changed my recommendation that I move that we recommend to City Council that they adopt. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to get a second for that.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion or, well, we actually need to open this public meeting, I'm so sorry. Did we have any comments or any letters or emails that came in on this issue?
I have none.
Do we have any speaker slips?
I have none.
Seeing no one that wants to speak on this issue, I will close the public meeting. Do we have any discussion from the commissioners on this ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Rogers.
I am voting against this ordinance, and I'd like to tell you why, because I think it will have a lot of unintended consequences. The chairman of the, also, another reason is the chairman of the BZA has considerable concerns about this, which have not been addressed, and I have received several comments from citizens opposed to this ordinance. Thank you.
Rogers, any other comments? Mr. Lawrence?
I don't know about unintended consequences. I think we do need to see how this works and then make changes as needed. I can't say I'm comfortable with 100% of it, but I think we need something like this and figure out how we're going to make it work in a practical sense, because part of the problem is, and we all went through this last week, well, and the weeks before, this, to a certain extent, this is subjective, and we can't, I don't think we could ever give enough guidance to make it not subjective. So I think something like this needs to be moved forward, and we'll have to tweak, and as we need to tweak, we need to use common sense.
Mr. Bodiska?
Yeah, ultimately, I'm going to be voting for this, while there may be some issues that are subjective in nature. Ultimately, my vote is going to be based on the process that allows people to question whether or not something that is subjective. They have an opportunity in this ordinance to suggest that it is either seasonal or for maintenance, and that the fine, as I understand it, is not just applied without due process, for lack of a better word, and therefore, hopefully, through that alone, we can sort out those ambiguities that the ordinance has. So that's why I'll be supporting it. Is the process, I think, allows citizens to have input, even if they are questioned about stuff on their property.
Mr. Lawrence?
I would just ask that, as things do come up with this, assuming this is passed, that, you regularly update us as things come in, and, let us know how it's going, not wait until, there's clearly a huge problem and then, say we need to fix something.
I appreciate that, and we will be trying to work on the chronic sites that we've heard in the past, where we have ongoing problems that are difficult to resolve. So we think it can be a good tool in that regard. But I'm very happy to keep the commission informed and up to date. We also did delay implementation and enforcement until May 1st, push that back a month, so that we are prepared and ready to do this and get a proper notice and everything out to people.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I just want to make a brief comment of my own. I will also be voting for this, mostly because I've heard from a lot of citizens, especially those near commercial properties, where there are issues that have been very difficult for the city to fix. I also don't like the system we have now, where ultimately we end up in court with people, and people may end up with a misdemeanor just because we're trying to work out some problems with a site. So I think that it makes a lot more sense for us to do civil penalties and to have a longer process that can try to help people get their commercial or residential properties up to code. And I just think it's important for the visual of the city as we're trying to develop the city and grow our commercial and protect our neighborhoods. We want this to be a place where you don't have this issue going on for years and years and years. And I've known people who've complained for years and years and years and not seen certain things fixed. And I've also known staff who have tried for years, and I've heard some of their frustrations. So I think that this is a really great first step, and I echo Mr. Lawrence that if we start to have any issues with it, let's bring it back and look at it again and make sure it's working well. But I think it's something we actually really need. If there's no more comments, can we get a roll call vote, Ms. G?
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Lofterson?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Teets?
Yes.
Mr. Bodiska?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, we have no other new business, and we do not have other business. We've already approved our minutes, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you guys. I know it's been a long night.